Hello, hello, and welcome back, everyone, and a huge welcome to day two of AWS UG Pune Security Week. Are you ready for another exciting session packed with valuable insights? Let's hear from you in the security from all the enthusiasts in the chat. Please hit hi in chat if you are ready, excited about today's session. Okay, so before starting with today's session, let's quickly understand why AWS Security Week. So yesterday there were some challenges with the audio, so I could not cover the that particular slide. But let's start with that today. Okay, so with the AWS User Group Pune, we had a hosted AWS DevSecOps Day community day, DevSecOps edition in 2024 January, a few months ago, and it was very well received by the audience, and we had received a very huge response to that. So we could heard few of the sad words that many people could not attend it, and they wanted to have similar sessions again. So we thought, why not to get online, and why not we should stream it live so that all the people all over the world can attend it. So we got the idea and we started with the security planning of the security week. So let's get into the objectives of this particular security week, why what we are doing this. So first thing is to enhance the clouds and AWS security knowledge for the attendees. So for all, we are this particular security week is open for all attendees, all of all the skill levels. So we believe that anyone working with AWS should have a strong foundation in cloud and security best practices, and it will help attendees to stay ahead of the latest threats by providing them with the latest information and insights from the industry experts that we have on our speakers panel. Then the cloud security is a landscape that is constantly changing right now, and it is evolving. So it is important to stay updated on latest threats and vulnerabilities, right? Apart from that, it provides this particular security week provides us with the opportunity to network with the speakers and attendees that we have on our session. So you can interact with them with in the LinkedIn comments. You can connect with them on the YouTube, and you can interact them with the social media platforms that we have. That is really a like networking is a valuable way to learn from others and share experiences and build the relations. That's how we know about the community, right? And then attendees will get opportunity to gain valuable insights from the industry experts. So we have assembled a lineup of speakers who are all experts in the respective fields, and they will be sharing their knowledge and insights about about their topics throughout the week. Okay, so let's see who are the speakers today for us. Uh, so for entire week, we have multiple speakers lined up with specific topics. So yesterday we had Kirti Dhabai with us, technical account manager from AWS. She covered very good aspects of the AWS Security Hub. Today we have Sameeksha Garg with us on Amazon Inspector. Then we have Shagun Maniwal, and on for day three, we'll be speaking on AWS Guard Duty. Next, we have Amazon Detective and Messi by Anjali Sharma. And after that, on day five, we'll be covering Amazon Web Application Firewall and Shield. And I'm going to cover that. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much about this entire security week. I hope you all are enjoying and you're learning from the presentations. And let's move to the today's session. So for today, we have Sameeksha Garg, who is technical account manager. So I'm thrilled to have her today, joining us live for today's session. And Sameeksha is technical account manager at Amazon Web Services with her extensive experience in cloud security. She is passionate about helping customers secure their cloud environments, and yeah, we are excited to have her share her experience with us. Thank you, Samiksha. Today you'll be diving us into the world of Amazon Inspector and how it can empower you to automate the security assessments in the AWS environments. So, without further ado, let's uh, let's hand over the floor to the Samiksha. So let me share the stage with Samiksha.
Hi everyone. Hi Vishal. Thanks for having me for a session on Amazon Inspector. I'm very pleased to share my experience with the service and with cloud security with the wider audience today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sameeksha. So, Sameeksha is going to cover many of the aspects in Amazon Inspector today. And yeah, let's hear from her, about her own words about the AWS security and inspector. You can start with your session, Sameeksha. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So, hi everyone. Today I'll be covering Amazon Inspector, which is an automated and continual vulnerability management service at AWS. Let's have a quick look at today's agenda. We'll be covering challenges with current scaling vulnerability management techniques. Then we'll discuss how Amazon Inspector works to overcome these challenges, some overview of features about the service and some of the key benefits that the service provides. Then we'll also look at some integration aspects of Amazon Inspector with core AWS services, some top industry use cases where Inspector is used widely. Then I will dive a little deep into software bill of materials, which is a feature that has been introduced very recently in Amazon Inspector. And then we'll have a look at how Amazon Inspector supports scanning for Lambda functions, container images, and EC2 instances. Then we also have a quick demo of the dashboard lined up for you so that you can have a great understanding of how the dashboard will look like, or how the findings are going to look like once you enable or start using this service for your environments. So let's dive right in. Now, when we talk about current challenges with the vulnerability management at scale, the key drivers for scalable vulnerability management are continuous development. Now, what do we mean by continuous development? With digital transformation initiatives in place, with so many new, changes taking place in our sorry current development life cycles, it's important that we are continuously monitoring our CI/CD pipelines for any vulnerabilities that we are introducing into the code, and then amend those vulnerabilities so that our softwares are free of those challenges, right? So it's important that we are continuously monitoring our environments for security vulnerabilities and remediating those so that they are not at a security risk. Then there is a growing complexity to comply with evolving compliance regulations. New day, new compliance regulations come into place. So it's important for an industry, wherever your application is, that they comply with certain industry standards like CIS, NIST, PCI DSS, etc. And as you advance, all your resources comply with those industry regulations. Then again, when we talk about vulnerability management or traditional methods of vulnerability management, manual processes like using IT assets for visibility into the vulnerabilities present in your softwares, then manually remediating the vulnerabilities, manually scanning your systems, it incurs a lot of time and a lot of cost. So with an automated vulnerability management system, you can reduce that operational workload, and you can have a single pane of glass where you can see all the findings related to any software vulnerabilities that are there in your systems or resources, and remediate or take actions on the same at a more regular interval. So for this, Amazon introduced Amazon Inspector, which is an automated and continual vulnerability management system at scale. Now, what is Amazon Inspector? It is a vulnerability management service which continuously scans AWS workloads for software vulnerabilities as well as unintended network exposure across your entire AWS organization. Now, once you activate Amazon Inspector, it automatically starts discovering all of your EC2 instances, container images in your Amazon Elastic Container Registry, which is ECR, and your AWS Lambda functions at scale. And it continuously monitors them for known vulnerabilities over using the set of CV databases that it uses, and it gives you a consolidated view of vulnerabilities across your compute environments. So as of today, as I mentioned, three resource types that are supported by Amazon Inspector is EC2, then container images, which are there in your Amazon ECR, and AWS Lambda functions. So you can use Amazon Inspector to scan your resources in these three services and identify the software vulnerabilities and any unintended network exposure across these services. Now, a quick look at how Amazon Inspector does that. So, when you enable Amazon Inspector, it's a very simple process. You go with the console, there's a get started click button. With just a single click, you can enable Amazon Inspector in your environment. And once you enable it, it starts automated workload discovery, which means that it'll go ahead and check in that particular region where you're enabling Amazon Inspector for the EC2 instances which are present in your account, for the Lambda functions which are present in your account, for the container images which are present in your account. And once it identifies that workload, it starts scanning those workloads on a continuous basis, right? And then against a vulnerability database that Amazon Inspector maintains, which is a database of common vulnerabilities and exposures list, which is a database of CVEs that it scans your workloads against. It generates near real time findings based on the software vulnerabilities found in your workloads. Right now, once it discovers and scans any findings or any software vulnerabilities, it generates contextualized findings which have contextualized severity and risk score associated to it, which helps you prioritize those findings in your environment. Right, it generates findings with high critical and low medium severity, so that it gives you an idea which findings to prioritize for your environment on a immediate basis. Right now, once you have those findings, you can integrate Amazon Inspector with a variety of services which we'll talk about in further slides, and take an action or respond to those findings in order to remediate those vulnerabilities in your workloads. Right now, starting with some key benefits of using Amazon Inspector. Now, as I mentioned, automated discovery and continual scanning, right? So, if let's say today when you enable Inspector, there are just 10 instances in your account, and tomorrow you go ahead and add two more instances, right? So, Amazon Inspector, you don't need to go ahead and enable Amazon Inspector scanning on those two instances separately. It automatically discovers the new workloads that are added in your environment, and it automatically starts scanning those resources for you. Right, then prioritize with contextualized scoring. Now, along with the CV score that it gets from the vulnerability databases, Amazon Inspector adds a contextualized scoring or a risk score of its own based on some criterias. And then you can use either of the scorings based on your industry use case to prioritize the findings and triage and analyze those findings for your environment. Then scale with simplified management. So again, as I mentioned, it's a very user friendly interface with Amazon Inspector. It's just a single click enablement. Now again, let's say you have Amazon Inspector, you want to enable Amazon Inspector across thousands of accounts in your organization. Right now, for that as well, Amazon Inspector has a multi account management flexibility, wherein you can enable Inspector with a single click across multiple accounts in your organization from a single pane of glass, or from a single account, or your centralized security account where you're enabling Inspector. Right, again, Scaling with simplified management could also be extended to the fact that once you enable inspector across your organization from a single account, you can look at the findings from for all the accounts across your organization at a single place in a single account, right? So that's another benefit of using Amazon Inspector. Then manage SBOM reports. So Amazon Inspector provides you with a way to export software bill of materials across all your monitored resources, and you can ingest those reports that we exported via Amazon Inspector into Amazon Athena and QuickSight to create dashboards and visualize uh, you know the findings across your resources, etc. Right, so we'll discuss SVM reports in detail in a couple of minutes. Then automating workflows and taking actions. Now Amazon Inspector has a great set of APIs, Amazon CLI, so you can use CLI as well as APIs to call Amazon Inspector APIs and automate your workflow. Again, you can integrate Amazon Inspector with a variety of other services to take or remediate actions on the findings, right? Now, some of the top industry use cases where Amazon Inspector is widely used are, it quickly discovers zero-day vulnerabilities in compute workloads. Let's have a look at each of these in detail. Now, Amazon Inspector automatically discovers all your workloads and continuously scans them for vulnerabilities, therefore, providing vulnerability information to customers in near real time without any manual overhead. So, as soon as a CV is added to the NVD database, Amazon Inspector and Amazon Inspector gets to know about it. It starts scanning your workloads for the new vulnerabilities that are added to the CV database and generate findings if your resources are vulnerable to that. Right, then prioritizing patch management, it uses current common vulnerabilities and exposures information and network accessibility to create contextual risk scores to prioritize and resolve vulnerable resources. So as I mentioned, it provides you with a contextual risk score. Along with that, you can see the risks associated with the CVE on the public portals, and you can prioritize those CVEs and resolve those vulnerable resources on a priority basis. Then meeting compliance requirements, it supports compliance requirements and best practices for standards such as cybersecurity frameworks such as NIST CSF, standards such as PCI DSS, and other vulnerability or compliance requirements across these industry best practices. Then shift security earlier in a development cycle. Now by enabling vulnerability scanning in your developer tools and exporting a consolidated SBOM report for your monitored resources, you can push security vulnerability identification earlier in your development cycle, so you can proactively you can proactively assess your container images during the build time itself within your CI/CD tool before pushing to your container registry or deploying it to production. So it helps you shift the security earlier in development cycle in that sense. Okay, now coming to operationalizing with core AWS services, when we talk about Inspector, it detects vulnerabilities and generates findings based on the vulnerabilities it has detected in your workload. Now, once you get the findings in Amazon Inspector console, you can integrate it with various services based on your use case. So, for example, let's start with AWS Security Hub. Now, AWS Security Hub is a service which provides you with a platform to look into the findings from various AWS services and some third party services as well at a single place in a centralized dashboard, which you can curate for seeing findings from various regions at a single place and from various accounts at a single place. Now, Amazon Inspector is integrated with AWS Security Hub as well. So when you enable Security Hub, by default, its integration with Amazon Inspector is enabled, and you should be able to see Amazon Inspector findings in your AWS Security Hub consoles. Now, needless to say, with AWS, when you see those findings in AWS Security Hub, you can create automated workflows through Security Hub to take actions on those findings. For example, you can forward those findings in AWS Security Hub along with Amazon Inspector from various other services like Guard Duty, Firewall Manager, WAF, etc., and create your automation workflows to work on the security events from multiple sources and take actions on the same. Like, you can integrate findings in security with the Amazon Event Bridge, and then you can further integrate it with Lambda function to take necessary actions. Right now, if you don't want to use AWS Security Hub, that's not a problem, because Amazon Inspector also directly integrates with Amazon Event Bridge, wherein you can ingest findings from Amazon Inspector into Amazon Event Bridge. As soon as the finding is generated in Amazon Inspector, that if you have an integration or an event rule in place to capture those findings in Event Bridge, it gets forwarded to the same in your real time, and then you can set targets for your Amazon Event Bridge rules to take actions on the finding that has been received. For example, let's say you have received a finding for your EC2 instance saying that it has a vulnerability for Java SDK package. It's not up to date, and in order to have uh, in order to free your EC2 instances with that security risk, you need to update it to the latest version, right? So you can integrate Amazon Event Bridge rule to a Lambda function. So as soon as the finding is generated in Amazon Inspector, it goes to the Event Bridge and triggers the target, which is a Lambda function, where you can process the finding, capture the package which is not updated, and update that package in your EC2 instances. Or if it's a network exposure finding wherein you're getting a finding that your EC2 instances has two wide access for a specific port like SSH, it's open to the world, let's say 0.0.0, then in your Lambda function, you can take actions to isolate that EC2 instance by stopping it until you monitor that EC2 instance, analyze that, and take further actions to uh, restrict the access in the security groups and NACLs. So these are few examples that how you can integrate Amazon Inspector with these services for taking automated actions. It has direct integration with the Amazon Event Bridge, but if you're using AWS Security Hub already, it's always better to get a capture of all the findings from various security services in a single pane of glass, so you can integrate it via AWS Security Hub as well. Now, lastly, as I mentioned, that Amazon Inspector now provides you with an option to export SBOM reports for your resources in the account which Amazon Inspector is monitoring. So you can export those reports to Amazon S3, and from there you can forward it to various analytical tools like Athena, and further visualize uh, those resources or the findings or the vulnerabilities related to those resources using the SBOM reports that you've exported to S3 bucket. Right. Now that we've talked about the core features and the core functionalities, let's dive a little deep into some of the features that we've talked about. Right. So, software bill of materials. An SBOM is basically a nested inventory of all the open source and third party software components of your code base. So Amazon Inspector provides SBOMs for individual resources in your environment, and SBOMs exported from Amazon Inspector can help you gain visibility into information about your software supply, such as your most commonly used packages and associated vulnerabilities across your organization. Now, Amazon Inspector as of today supports exporting your SBOMs in Cyclone DX 1.4 and SPDX 2.3. formats. And when you export SBOMs to your S3 bucket, they get exported as JSON files. So in the S3 bucket of your choice that you choose while configuring SBOM reports, which we'll see in the demo. And post that, those JSON files, you can process those JSON files and forward them to analytics tools like Amazon Athena, and create tables there to run queries on those SBOM reports and fetch details about the resources which Amazon Inspector has scanned, the vulnerabilities which have been identified for those scanned resources. So this is a quick overview of what SBOM reports are. Now, next, now as we've discussed, as of today, Amazon Inspector supports scanning Lambda functions for vulnerabilities, CI, and container images and EC2 instances. So let's start with Lambda function. Now, when we talk about scanning, automated scanning for Lambda functions, Amazon Inspector offers two types of scanning for Lambda functions today. The scan types look for different types of vulnerabilities. So starting with the standard scanning, right? So this is the default Lambda scan type. Lambda standard scanning scans application dependencies within a Lambda function and its layers for package vulnerabilities, right? On the other hand, if you talk about the Lambda code scanning, this scan type scans the custom application code in your functions and layers for code vulnerabilities. You can either again, you can either activate Lambda standard scanning or activate Lambda standard scanning along with code scanning. Whenever you're enabling Inspector, you have an option to choose between just the standard or both, right? Now, there's some enhancements to Lambda code scanning over the past. Now, Inspector provides Gen AI and automated reasoning assisted code remediations for Lambda code scanning findings. So you'll see that once the finding is generated, you'll see a detailed information or on how can you remediate the code. For example, if you look at an example that I've highlighted here, you'll see that remediations show in context code patches to reduce the effort to fix code vulnerability. So it will tell you exactly where the security vulnerability in the code lies. For example, if there are any embedded access keys in your information in your code. So when Amazon Inspector is going to generate a Lambda finding for that particular function, it will highlight the code where the access keys are exposed, so that you can take an action, remove those exposed access keys, and create it will also suggest a code snippet which you can use instead in order to remediate that finding, right? So this is one of the major enhancements to Lambda code scanning. Then coming to container image scanning with CI/CD tools. So when you activate Amazon Inspector scan for Amazon ECR, you set Amazon Inspector as your preferred scanning service for your private registry. Now, this replaces the default scanning feature, which is provided at no charge by Amazon ECR, with enhanced scanning feature, which is provided and built through Amazon Inspector. Now, what is the difference between basic and enhanced scanning? Enhanced scanning provided by Amazon Inspector gives you the benefit of vulnerability scanning for both operating system and programming language packages at the registry level. So you can also integrate your Amazon Inspector container image scans directly into your CI/CD pipelines, as I mentioned earlier, to scan for software vulnerabilities and provide reports at the end of your build. Now, the vulnerability reports generated by Amazon Inspector allow you to investigate and remediate risks before deployment, right? Which is very important, right? You need to identify the security vulnerabilities in your code before the build, and before that code is pushed to production, so that you can remediate those security risks, and it reduces the effort of, again, let's say if you got to know after moving your code to development and then to production, that there are some security vulnerabilities, then you need to repeat the whole cycle of going back, remediate those software vulnerabilities and push the code again. So if you identify the vulnerabilities that are there in the code well, in advance in the software cycle, then you can reduce that operational effort. Now, Amazon Inspector CI/CD integration, it utilizes a combination of Inspector SBOM reports and Amazon Inspector Scan APIs to provide to produce vulnerability reports for your container images. Uh, uh, and also, uh, if you look at the screen, Amazon, this particular feature, you can achieve a CI/CD integration with Amazon Inspector through Amazon Inspector plugins, which are purposefully built for individual CI/CD solutions, and which are available in the marketplace as well. So using these plugins, you can create your own custom scanning integration, which is a great advancement to current set of features that Amazon Inspector provides for container image scanning. So this is a very recent feature, but it's great to have that on board, since it helps you scan your container images during your CI/CD pipeline lifecycle well in advance. Okay, so that's about container image scanning. Next, there is agentless scanning of EC2 instances. Right now, Amazon Inspector EC2 scanning. How does that work? So let me first explain that. In EC2 scanning, Inspector extracts metadata from your EC2 instances. Then it compares that EC2 instance metadata against rules collected from security advisories or the CVE databases to produce findings. Now, Amazon Inspector scans instances as of today for both package vulnerabilities and for network vulnerability issues as well. So if we talk about the network reachability scans that Amazon Inspector performs for an EC2 instance, it's done once every 24 hours, while package vulnerability scans are performed on a variable, timeline, depending on the scan method associated with the instance. Now, the scan methods, right? There are two types of methods which are present as of today with EC2 scanning. One is hybrid scan mode, which is a new feature. Earlier, it just used to be agent based scan mode, which is, as I mentioned, an existing method, right? So when we are talking about the agent based scan mode, right? So in agent based scan mode, if you're using the agent based scan mode for your EC2 instances, then when you enable Amazon Inspector, it sees that if SSM agent is installed on your EC2 instances or not. Otherwise, it integrates with Systems Manager to install SSM agent on your EC2 instances, and through that SSM agent, it gets the metadata for your from your EC2 instances to compare it against the various rules across the security advisories. So in agent based scan mode, you will need to have an SSM agent installed on your EC2 instances. Now, in hybrid scan mode, Inspector relies on SSM agents to perform assessments for instances which are managed by SSM, but it automatically switches to agent less scanning for EC2 instances that do not have SSM agents installed or configured on your EC2 instances, right? But in agent based scan mode, as I mentioned, that if your EC2 instances do not have an SSM agent installed on them, then Amazon Inspector will not be able to scan those EC2 instances for vulnerabilities, right? So hybrid scan mode is a new mode where customers get the ability to be able to scan their EC2 instances for vulnerability, even if the scanning even if the agents SSM agents are not installed on their EC2 instances. Now, how does that happen? For agentless scans in hybrid mode, Inspector snapshots the EBS volumes associated to those EC2 instances to access the file system data using EBS direct APIs. And then it scans those EBS snapshots for any software vulnerabilities that might be present on your instance. Now, needless to say, snapshots are never copied outside of your account for security reasons. So that's something that, you can be you can you should not be concerned about. Okay, I think that's it from an overview perspective of what Amazon Inspector is. What are the key features and benefits? Some of the benefits. Now, let me switch over to my browser for a quick demo.
Okay, Sameeksha, before that, can we have some Q&A session because we have few questions from LinkedIn and YouTube as well.
Sure, no problem.
So, okay. So, I'll just okay. The first session is from Arun Kumar from LinkedIn. What is the ideal time period for period that you suggest for inspector scanning? Say it like once a day or once a week, etc.
So, as I mentioned, Amazon Inspector has an automated scanning, right? So, users do not need to go ahead and run a manual scan. Uh, Amazon Inspector triggers scanning based on certain criteria automatically. For example, let's say there is a new CVE in the market in the database. So Amazon Inspector is, as soon as that CVE is added to the database, it scans your EC2 instances in the account for those vulnerabilities. Then, if let's say in your current EC2 instance, you make a change at application level, or there is a new package added, or software package added to your EC2 instance. So since Amazon Inspector is continuously discovering your workloads and collecting the metadata, it will get to know about that, and it will trigger a scan on your resources. So you don't need to run any manual scans at a regular interval. It automatically scans based on the changes to the CVE database and the instances or the resources that it supports.
Okay. Yeah, hope that helps and answers your question. We have another question on YouTube. How does Amazon Inspector compare other vulnerability management solutions available in the market? That's good question.
Uh, Sorry, how does Amazon Inspector?
Compared to other vulnerability management solutions available in the market.
Okay, so there are various vulnerability management systems or scanning tools available, right, in the market. I cannot quote a specific one and compare Amazon Inspector with them, but if you had a look at the very beginning of the slide, how Amazon Inspector helps in terms of vulnerability management is, one, it has a very user friendly interface, and it is an automated vulnerability management service, right, which a lot of tools might or might not provide, right. It continuously discovers your workloads. Secondly, it provides you with the ease of scanning your resources across your complete AWS organization, that is, all your AWS accounts, right. So it has some key benefits and features. Now, depending on the tool you're using, uh, the benefits, or the use case might differ.
Okay. Yeah, apart from that, I guess the tight integration with the AWS ecosystem is
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
important here. Also, focusing on the AWS specific risks for continuous scan capabilities is one of the major things that we need to
Right.
see when we are comparing with other solutions that are available in market, right?
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I guess yeah, we are done with few of the related questions that we have. We'll have one more round of Q and A's after the demo as well. So I'll just
Okay.
add your presentation to stage.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. So, having a quick look at the dashboard, right? So, if you see, I'm at the homepage of Amazon Inspector dashboard. Now, Amazon Inspector dashboard provides a snapshot of aggregated statistics across all your AWS resources, across the supported AWS resources in the current AWS region. Now, what do I mean by that is Amazon Inspector is a regional service, right? So right now, if you go ahead and integrate Amazon Inspector across all your accounts, you would be able to see findings from a specific region where you've enabled Inspector in the Amazon Inspector dashboard, and information related to the resources in that specific region. Now, if you want a region wide centralized dashboard, then as I mentioned, Security Hub is a great source. You can integrate Amazon Inspector with Security Hub. In Security Hub, you can enable the feature wherein you can see findings from all the regions at a single place in a single dashboard from all the accounts across your organization. But as far as Amazon Inspector is concerned, it's a region specific service, so you'd be able to see a snapshot of all the important information related to your resources and the findings related to that on the dashboard in that specific region. Now, the key things that are there on the dashboard, if you see, it's the environment coverage. So it provides statistics about the resources scanned by the Amazon Inspector. So what does that mean is, let's say right now I have 6 instances in my AWS account. So currently it is scanning only 5 EC2 instances. So if I click on that metric, I'll be able to see the EC2 instances which Amazon Inspector is scanning, the ones it is scanning, and the ones it's not scanning, it will provide you with a reason of why that EC2 instance is not being scanned right now. So if you see, for this particular EC2 instances that Amazon Inspector is not scanning, it says that it is not managed by SSM. Now, which means that SSM agent is not installed on this EC2 instance, and which also means that currently I'm using a standard scanning mode for scanning my EC2 instances, which requires SSM agent to be installed. I'm not using hybrid scanning mode for EC2 instance scanning in my account. So this is an unmanaged EC2 instance, and it is not being scanned by Amazon Inspector. Now, similar to that, for other resources, I just have one repository. It shows 100% coverage, which means that all the repositories are being scanned. And similar to that, for Lambda functions, currently all my Lambda functions are getting scanned. So it will give you a statistic about the environment coverage of how many resources are getting scanned right now and how many are not. Then it also gives you a statistic or snapshot of the number of critical findings across your resources, different resources. So for the findings that have been generated in my account, for example, for ECR containers, there are 31 total findings that have been generated for my repository or container images in the repository, but 2 out of those are critical findings. Now, the best part is that you get a link. As soon as you click on that link, you are headed to the page where you could see those critical findings. So which means that Amazon Inspector dashboard, when you click on that link, automatically applies the necessary filters to look at the critical findings in your environment for that particular resource, right? Then again, some other information related to that is, it displays the top ECR images with most critical findings, and the Lambda functions which have the packages which are critical, which have been generated with critical finding severity. Then other than that, for Lambda functions, you'll see the functions with the most critical findings generated, and the AMIs, or the EC2 instance AMIs which have been generated with the most critical findings, and so on. So this is some of the information that you'll see on the dashboard, or a quick snapshot or overview of the most important information from all the findings that have been generated in your inspector. Now, moving to the findings tab, you can see all the findings at a single place. You can apply various filters to search through the findings, wherein you can search with a keyword, or with the complete filter. And the various filters that are provided are from a specific finding that is generated, right? So for example, if I go ahead and click on this finding, it will give me a link, finding id link. If I click on the JSON there, you'll see you have the complete finding JSON here. So there is various information related to that. What is the remediation that Amazon Inspector recommends for a finding, uh, details about the resource for which the finding is generated. For example, this is generated for a lambda function. It will display information as minute as the runtime that is being used for that lambda function, the package type for which the finding is generated. Then there is, if you see, an inspector score, which is the contextualized scoring that we were talking about, right? It also displays the source of the CVE, which inspector has used to generate the finding. So for this particular finding, it used the NVD database, which is National Vulnerability Database, for CVE, right? It displays the score related to that CVE from the NVD database as well, right? So if you want to use the standard score from the NVD database to filter your findings, you can use that. Otherwise, if you want to prioritize the findings based on inspector score, you can use that. Then it displays the details about the CVE for which the finding is generated. So in this case, it's CVE 2021 23406, and it displays the information related to that CVE, and so on, right? So this is the most important information that you can capture from a finding that is generated. Right now, again, as I mentioned, the fields that are displayed here is all the information that you can get from the findings. So if you want to filter findings for a specific EC2 instance, or a specific image, or a specific function, or filter findings just for with a specific severity or a resource type, anything, package, or CVE vulnerability, etc., you can apply those filters here, and see those findings. Now, once you've applied the filters, if you want to export all the findings, you can use the export findings feature, right? There are two options to export the findings, whether in the JSON file type format or the CSV format, and you need to provide the location to the S3 bucket where you want to export those findings. And once you've applied these filters, or you've selected the findings that you want to export, you can export those findings to your desired S3 bucket. Then there's an option to create suppression rules. Right now, what are suppression rules? Uh, let's say there are some EC2 instances. If I take a use case, there are some EC2 instances in your environment which are test EC2 instances, or they're not based off your production account. They are based off your testing account, and you expect some vulnerabilities to be present on those EC2 instances, but those are not concerning at the moment for you, and you want to avoid seeing the findings uh, for the same in under the active findings section of your inspector dashboard, to reduce the noise, basically, so that you just focus on the findings which are there for your critical resources, right? So in that case, you can create a suppression rule and add the rule filters. For example, for the example that I mentioned, uh, you can mention the if you go to the EC2 instance related, yeah, your resource ID or resource tag, right? So for example, all the EC2 instances in your testing account have a certain tag, where the EC2 instances are tagged with test key and value, right? So you can mention that resource tag, and any findings which are generated for those EC2 instance, once you create the suppression rule, they'll not show up here. They'll automatically go to the suppressed tab, and you'll still be able to see those findings in your account, but they'll not create a noise in your active findings. So you can use suppression rules to avoid seeing findings for the resources which you do not wish to monitor, right? Now, other than that, there are some direct links given to filter findings based on the type of resources, like by instance, by container image, by container repository, by lambda function. So when you click on these individual tabs, you will see findings related to only the resources of that type, and you don't need to filter from the main window here. So if you just want to see findings for your lambda function, you can simply switch to those tabs. Now SBOMs, which we talked about, again, if you see here, there are two file formats available, right? And once you export those SBOM reports to S3 bucket, you need to provide the export location for that S3 bucket in your account. And once you export those findings to the S3 bucket, they are exported in a JSON format. Now further, you can integrate that S3 bucket and run some analytics tools across that to further query the findings in those reports, or query the data in those SBOM reports. Now there's a direct window to create suppression rule as well, but it's similar that you see the one as you see here on the main findings page, right? Then there's an added feature to scan EC2 instances to see if they meet security configurations recommended by CIS. So earlier, with the new version of Inspector, only CVE scanning was supported, but now CIS scans, as it was supported in the previous version of Inspector, are also available. So you can initiate a CIS scan on your EC2 instances or on your resources manually if you need to scan your EC2 instances for CIS, related security configurations as well now. Along with that, we have a vulnerability database search. So you don't need to go over the internet and search for a specific CV. If you're looking for more information around it, you can simply paste the CV here, and Inspector does that job for you. It will find out that specific vulnerability, and it will give you more detailed information about that CVE here, right? So let's, I think I copied the wrong CVE ID, right? So if you see here, uh, as soon as I searched for a specific CVE, it generated details about that CVE, the platform for which it's applicable. Like this is a CVE for Ubuntu platform, then the CVSS score associated for that CVE, its severity, the EPSS score, etc. And when was that CVE created by the vendor, and when was it last updated, right? So you get all that information. Along with that, it gives you with a reference link, direct link to that CVE as well, where you can go ahead and take a look at detailed information. Then account management. So as you see, I mentioned that you can manage multiple accounts with Amazon Inspector from a single account. So here right now only one account is present, from which I'm presenting the demo. So you just see one account. So once you integrate or enable multi account feature, or activate multi account feature, it will display all the accounts in your organization, and you can select those individual accounts and activate the various scanning functionalities across the resources of those accounts. So for example, for some accounts you just want to enable EC2 scanning or ECR scanning, so you'll get a checkbox to select the accounts. You can select those accounts from the list, and then select the scanning that you want to enable for it, and then click on submit. So for those accounts, only those type of scannings will be activated, and you can see in the window here what scanning is enabled for those accounts, right? Now resource coverage, what you saw on the dashboard, this is a quick overview. Or when you click there on the dashboard on the resource coverage or environment coverage, you're headed to these pages which display the exact resources which are being covered by Amazon Inspector, and which are not currently being accessed by Amazon Inspector in your account. Some general settings. So as I mentioned, you can activate, okay, so you can activate or deactivate Amazon Inspector at a later point in time whenever you want, right? You can set your EC2 scan settings from here for agentless or agent based scans, or the scan types that we discussed. For ECR scanning, you can now define the ECR rescan duration. So by default, it scans the images which have been pushed up to 90 days, but you can change it to scan ECR images based on the push date, 180 days, 30 days, 14 days. There are various options available, or lifetime, which means that until the image is deleted, Amazon runs automated rescans on the same, right? Or based if you're choosing a specific number of days, Amazon Inspector will continuously or run an automated rescan on those ECR images for the said number of days after this image has been pushed in your repository, right? Last but not the least, you can see the usage based on the account. So for all the accounts, let's say I have 10 accounts here, so it will show the account usage or the projected cost. So it's based on the account usage for the last 30 days. The projected cost is based on the account usage for the last 30 days. And if there are more accounts, you'll see usage for those as well. Other than that, you can see usage details related to different resources as well, uh, based on the pricing model over here. So for all the resources, inspector pricing is prorated based on the number of resources and the amount of time that resource is running in your account. So it's on a prorated basis, so you can see the usage details to get an idea of the cost that it's going to cost you during the free trial period, when you're monitoring the cost for your resources that Amazon Inspector is going to do. Yeah, so that's it. Any questions, feel free to ask. Vishal, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks,
No
Sameeksha.
worries.
That was very helpful and insightful demo. I could see many of the things that were actually evolving when we are going through the screens of actual Amazon Inspector. So yeah, we have a few of the questions. I have a few questions as well. So let's take the questions from audience first. We have a very good number of audience. 80 or 90 people are live on YouTube and many on LinkedIn as well. So let's see what are the related questions. Okay, we have a question from Divya. Hello, this is very useful service. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, Divya. I want to know, are there any features from Amazon Inspector for automating remediation of identified vulnerabilities?
Right. So, great question. So, if you talk about features, right, Amazon Inspector integrates with core AWS services like Event Bridge, Security Hub, as I mentioned, which you can use to automatically remediate the findings that you're getting.
Okay. And we have another question from Sankalp. How does the agentless scanning handle situations where an instance is stopped or restarted during the scanning process? That's a good question, Sankalp.
Okay, so Amazon Inspector scans EC2 instances when they are in active state, as far as I know, but I'll have to confirm on that. Uh, yeah,
Yes, I think it will resume the scanning once it is restarted or it is in active state. And but yeah, it will definitely impact the time of scanning when
right,
you interrupt because your scanning gets interrupted and it will be restarted, right?
right.
Yeah. Mm, okay, we have one more from YouTube. Divya is asking, does enabling agentless scanning impact the increase increases cost of using Amazon Inspector for vulnerability management?
Yes. So, since it uses EBS snapshots in the backend for agentless scanning, so that's gonna affect the cost.
Okay. But the scanning cost won't be increased, right? That will be kind of the cost that will be there with the Amazon Inspector for the scanning. There won't be
No.
any
So the
additional cost
scanning
for
cost,
scanning.
yeah, the scanning cost would remain the same. It will be prorated based on the number of Amazon EC2 instances scanned per month using SSM agent based scanning. Uh, but yes, you if since there will be snapshots taken in your account, so that's gonna affect the
Okay.
pricing.
Mhm. Let me check on LinkedIn if you have any other questions.
So a great example for that is given in our pricing documentation, Amazon EC2 agentless scanning. So uh, you can have a look at it. I can share the link of the pricing documentation.
Yes, you can put in comments
There,
or
there
chat.
you go. So so if I have to differentiate a bit, so for SSM agent based scanning the charge is 1.258 for a specific region, a dollar 1.258 each. And but on the other hand, for agentless scanning the price is a little bit higher, which is $1.75 each. So that's how the pricing is going to vary.
Okay, I think we do not have any other questions. Uh, Let me quickly check on other platforms if you have any questions. No, I think yeah, we are good. We have almost answered all the questions that are related to the inspector. There are a few questions that are not related to the inspector directly, so I'll directly go ahead and comment on their with their queries. So that was an incredible session, Sameeksha. We have learned so much from you about the Amazon Inspector and its powerful capabilities for automating the security assessments. So let's give a huge thanks to the Sameeksha for sharing your knowledge and insights with our community. And we are truly grateful for your time and expertise today. Okay, guys, don't forget to share your feedback and any questions if you have for the Sameeksha in the chat. And we'll encourage the future further discussion and your learnings. You can share your learnings in a LinkedIn post and tag Sameeksha and AWS User Group Pune as well. Thank you. And remember, we have one more exciting. We have one, not one actually. We have more exciting sessions lined up for rest of the week. So stay tuned and follow AWS User Group Pune for further updates. Thank you all for your joining. Thank you all for joining us today, and see you tomorrow for another exciting session. Thanks. And you can
Thanks,
follow
Vishal.
AWS User Group Pune on LinkedIn, Meetup, Twitter, or YouTube. And you can join community.aws, that is a brand new community site from AWS. You can go through the content and many of the useful resources from there, and you can find your local user groups over there, and you can connect with your local user groups as well. Thank you. Thanks all for your joining. Thanks, Samiksha. Bye. Have a
Thanks,
nice day.
Vishal. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.